Addicts is all-inclusive, allowing us to concentrate on our similarities, not our differences. This statement is offered in the spirit of NA unity. Please remember that this request is not being made in order to rule, censor, or dictate behavior. We make this request in order to provide an atmosphere of recovery where we can all hear the clear, unconfused, life-saving message of Narcotics Anonymous. At this time, I've asked a family member to read how it works.
I'm Ronnie B, and I'm Addict.
Ronnie B.
Ronnie B.
Y'all know how it works. If you want what we have to offer and willing to make an effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that make our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we are powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all the defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admit it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice the principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order. We can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicts in one day, so remember, easy does it. It's one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problem within our society and everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to addiction is not to take that first drug. Like us, you know that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. We put great emphasis on this, but we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol is different from other drugs that cause a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of you alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug. We are people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover.
Thanks for reading.
Great.
And I've asked a family member to read the 12 traditions.
I'm Dave and I'm an addict.
Dave.
12 Traditions of Narcotics Anonymous. We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as the freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our tradition. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2, for our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6, an NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, each NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, NA as such ought never be organized. but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personality.
Thanks for reading. At this time, I'd like to introduce the topic of the workshop. It's entitled The Traditions. Imagine that. And we have a couple of speakers. I don't know who's going to go first. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Tate.
Okay.
I'm addict named Tate.
Tate.
Good morning. Not a big crowd beating the door down today here to talk about traditions at 9 o'clock. I guess all of y'all had a good night's sleep and y'all are ready to come in here and, go ahead and check out a workshop early on. That's something, at a convention. I know getting out and getting going and being here at 9 o'clock. Maybe, depending on how late you stayed up. What a topic, the traditions, just the traditions, not tradition 4, not tradition 2, just the traditions in general. And this topic has just had me kind of like, how do you really even, because that's all Tony said, it's just, you're going to be doing it on the traditions. And I was like, that's it, just the traditions. And so I was, just kind of thinking about the traditions and the past few days, especially just trying to wrap my head around what we'd share about. And, how you could steer that into a topic or into a, some kind of meaningful message that would be useful. And, I just think about the reading when I think about the traditions. And the thing I think about is the idea that the traditions came from hard-won experience from our predecessors. And you hear the word predecessors a lot in Narcotics Anonymous, but in that reading, I think, and the way I interpret the word predecessors, it is the people that held the office of helping addicts before Narcotics Anonymous, and that was Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's a lot of information about the 12 traditions in our literature, not a lot of information about the formulation of the 12 traditions, which is in Alcoholics Anonymous's literature. I know you have a clarity statement, and in order to apply the traditions, I'm just going to let you know, I'm not endorsing Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not telling you that one drug is different than another. I'm not telling you I'm an alcoholic. I'm not trying to blur the NA message. I'm just telling you a fact. Alcoholics Anonymous formulated the 12 traditions. And there is an account of how that happened, which is not in NA literature. It's in AA's literature. And so in order to understand and apply the traditions, I feel like that it's important to understand the context that the traditions came from. And to me, it was really helpful to kind of make myself a student of that and go ahead and read the predecessors' literature. I don't have to go to their meetings. I can order it online, get it over with, and then the quirky stories that are actually attached to each tradition, which sometimes they bring clarity to it, sometimes they don't. Anyway, that's my spiel as far as predecessors. And as far as like in the real world applying the 12 traditions today, to me, the 12 traditions is about getting along with people. and us, and this big idea of addicts coming together and trying to help each other stay clean on a regular basis, having something to keep us. I thought of a good way to explain it this morning, and it was that the traditions protect us from ourselves, and the concepts protect ourselves from us. So the traditions are all about keeping an individual who is egomaniacal, who's self-centered, who wants to have what they want, and giving them some. And what it has done for me, it's given me some kind of framework to keep myself kind of at bay. And it starts with the first one. Our common welfare should come first. So it's like Spock said when he slapped his finger or his hands on the glass. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, and then he slides down the glass and dies in the radioactive chamber. And for all you Trekkies, I guess you would understand that, but I think that was no, never mind. So it's a we thing. The traditions are kind of give us the opportunity to have this we of Narcotics Anonymous without having to worry about somebody setting up some kind of structure or organization that would tell you that your brand of recovery is better than anybody else's brand of recovery, or that you're somehow even worse than the worst of us. And to me, that's what that anonymity is about. That kind of pervades all of the 12 traditions that we should try and strive to see each other as equals and as peers in a program that it really doesn't distinguish based on your age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, lack of religion. It all seems to hit us between the eyes in the same way. And with or without drugs. With or without drugs. And I was thinking about how I could kind of bring a message that kind of brings the 12 traditions into context with like real recovery. And it's like if you go through every one of the 12 traditions and really think about them, that there's just so much that just comes out of each one. And the ones that kind of come out, the ones that stick out to me are the one about group conscience and just the ideas that kind of start rolling around when I start thinking about each group has but one primary purpose: to carry the message to the addict still suffers. And the 12 traditions, anonymity, it's a spiritual foundation. So really to talk about the traditions in general, you got to pick the top 3 at least. You can't tackle all of them. Like I said, to me, I got a lot more out of the stories around the formulation of the traditions in Alcoholics Anonymous's literature, as far as understanding the traditions, but as far as applying the traditions and being able to implement them with the fellowship here in Narcotics Anonymous, the thing that I've gotten the most out of the traditions was becoming part of Narcotics Anonymous and being a member of Narcotics Anonymous, part of a home group, and trying to see how I fit into that relationship with other addicts in terms of Narcotics Anonymous, as fellows in a fellowship, as members of something bigger than myself. the we of NA. And this is something that is being talked about, and that it's just right on the edge of everything right now, is what is this idea of group conscience? Because as this fellowship grows and becomes bigger and bigger, we have to continually ask ourselves and revisit the idea of, how do we come up with, is a group conscience just simply a matter of majority? Is it a vote count? Or do we actually have to get to know each other and have conversations and also look at different points of view, as far as what we think works in meetings and what we don't think works in meetings. Our home group just recently did an inventory, which I was like, oh God, an inventory. And it's like, I joined this group because it was laid back, and I didn't feel like I was going to have to do a whole lot of work, and then other people joined it like right at the same time, and they're all just like, yeah, let's really, let's talk about what we want to do, and let's change the format, and let's have a group inventory, and let's talk about, how we participate in area and do all this stuff. And I was like, man, I just wanted to chair meetings every 3 or 4 months, and group conscience, I just wanted it to be kind of like, just pick who the chairperson is and make sure the literature's good, and man, this group, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's me. I don't think it's me, but just all of a sudden it's just got all this momentum. And that's why I left the last group, because it was like, hey, y'all are really trying to, do this thing. And, that's part of it's just, I've kind of really become less connected and less motivated to do that kind of stuff that I used to be, just because for whatever, all the reasons that there are, too busy. I got the baby, I got the wife at home riding my ass, I don't have enough time, I'm tired, I'm getting old, whatever. Those are all the reasons why I wouldn't want to do it. But what I'm starting to see more and more often now is that my personal recovery depends on Narcotics Anonymous relationships, people that I can continue to try to have a relationship with. And if I don't have those relationships, the world becomes very small again. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take slacking off on meetings very, very long to really start telling on me up here. And I start to, it's amazing that without drugs and without the unity of Narcotics Anonymous, how powerful this drug still is without drugs. This disease, it can make things that just are completely untrue, or for me, the biggest thing that I've seen since I moved to Decatur and out of my comfort zone and away from all the people that I know and tried to integrate into a fellowship that's very different. As far as the metro Atlanta areas, they overlap, they're disjointed, and pretty much the same people go to the same certain meetings. And I've kind of gone around and checked out different meetings. It's not necessarily because they don't like anybody else. A lot of times it's because that's the meeting that they're close to and it's more convenient. I know that's why I go to the meeting I go to. But what it's helped me to do is get off my laurels and challenge myself to get to know people a little bit more and talk to people, and just try to be nice to people. And lately that's just kind of been something that takes effort for me to do. And so at the end of the road, when we find we can't function as a human being with or without drugs, we ask ourselves, what is there left to do? And I had kind of come to the end of the road for myself as far as, look, I'm about to go fucking crazy. Because I was going to maybe one meeting a week. I was taking stretches that I'd never done in my recovery, 10, 15 days where I wouldn't go to a meeting, not very involved, still doing service work and stuff, I'm still having conversations with people about how do we serve the region in general. But as far as like actually having a real relationship with anybody in Narcotics Anonymous that makes a difference in my own personal life, and doing step work, calling my sponsor or anything like that, I kind of really gotten away from that. So I called my sponsor, and me and my wife were almost at the point where we're just ready to break up, even with the baby. Just because our personalities, whatever, insanity was to edge. And I called my sponsor, and for the first time in a couple months, and he said, yep, 90 and 90. And I laughed. Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, that's hilarious. 90 and 90. And he's like, yep, you go to 90 and 90, and then we'll start talking about doing the steps again. And I was like, you serious? Yeah, 90 meetings in 90 days, which I'm having to start over again because I missed a couple meetings last week. And so, yeah, I know how 90-90 works. It means 90 meetings in 90 consecutive days. Which, where I live, I could go to 5 or 6 meetings a day. But I don't know how much I've already dug into this. And so the solution that I'm getting into is about unity. And it's about me being able to try and do what is inconvenient again and start going to meetings. As far as like talking about the 12 traditions and trying to keep this workshop on topic, I think about the traditions a lot, and that there's a lot of disagreement really about what they mean, how they're interpreted. I think a lot of people see them different ways, and I think we generally respect each other when we do see that somebody else really does believe something else. And you have to think about what it must have been like to go through the process of not having any traditions and learning from hard-won experience that we can't have professionals in Narcotics Anonymous, or that we can't have that we ought to be unorganized. We can't have a governmental hierarchy here that tells us how to sponsor people or what the right way of sharing is. And I used to be one of those people that, like, my hair would stand up on the back of my neck when I hear the word sober in meetings, or if I were in meetings and I'd hear people start talking about their religious beliefs and all that. It really bothered me, and I don't think it's really as much about a clear message as it was I had just gotten used to hearing people share in a certain way without talking about those things, and it helped me in my recovery. So I kind of want to impose that on other people. I don't really necessarily think that has anything to do with the 12 traditions. I think the 12 traditions protect themselves. They don't need us to protect them. That's my own personal way of looking at it. Traditions are understood and applied. They're not broken. Unless you stop doing a tradition never breaks. You can't make a tradition just go away by doing something stupid. And there's just so much more depth as far as the spiritual aspect of the traditions to really narrow them down to, like, you can make little infractions on them that they're like a little checklist of laws that can be so easily fractured and broken and chipped away, when the reality is that there really is a lot more depth to the idea of anonymity and the principles behind the traditions and the spiritual properties that kind of pervade this idea of the 12 traditions. They're not fragile. They're not easily broken because they were created through suffering and toil. They were created from people who died because they were ostracized and kicked out of the fellowship. They were created from diversity. They were created by discrimination and from telling people they couldn't show up in meetings. I'm not talking about Narcotics Anonymous. I'm talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, where the tradition started. And in 52, 53, I think that was when AA first wrote down the 12 traditions. So you can see that that's when our fellowship, first got into the water, and it suffered for a long time before we. From what I understand, from what I heard, I wasn't there. They tell me that it had trouble taking off because we never followed traditions, and people from AA would be coming into our meetings and messing around with things and trying to tell us what to do, which we don't do that very well. And so there was a big push for us to become our own distinct fellowship. I'm paraphrasing. This is all, and even still, the people I heard it from, I don't know where the fuck they got that idea, but I guess it's legend has it. This is how it happened. And, I think about it, dude, if you think about the 30s and the 40s when that fellowship started, in the 50s, these were these were difficult times in the United States, especially for us people who our lives were bad enough that we had to have something else. For those of us that were, drunks and addicts and junkies and street people, all that much more difficult. So, in light of all that, I think what happened was people started to work together to try to make something that was community-based, that didn't have a price tag on it, and that wasn't about ripping people off. Because really that was kind of the story of the 40s and 50s and 60s, was people who could be screwed got screwed. And if we didn't watch out for each other, nobody else was going to. And I think that's still the same today, Addicts have something that has no substitute when it comes to understanding other addicts. And we share the same experience of feelings. We can identify, which, there is no substitute for identification. And I think, that's a big part of our unity is we know where you're coming from. Even if we don't look like we came from there right now, it's still, it ain't that far, it ain't damn long ago. But I think I've talked about 30 minutes. I did my spiel, and it's hard to kind of steer this thing into a topic. And what's interesting about the speaker selection in this, me and Cecil are probably on opposite ends of the spectrum socially. Like as far as how we interact with people, I'm more like introverted, and Cecil, I'd say, would probably be an extrovert, which was probably that's good speaker selection on the traditions, because isn't that what traditions are about? It's about these crazy different people in the fellowship being able to coexist and actually be useful for each other, because it's been good to have you in my recovery. Having people from completely opposite ends of the whatever spectrum, that's what helps. I mean, I think. But appreciate y'all for letting me share.
Hey family, I'm Cecil Addicts.
Cecil.
However, Tate and I did get up and take off our little overcoats and end up with the same clothes on over, and we just started laughing. I know, right? And I wanted you to go first so I can steal a little of your literature, your little stuff. And one of the things that I want to touch on, and one of the things I'm going to do actually is we're going to talk about some of the traditions. We'll read a little bit from them, elaborate on them. They're one of the least visited things we got in our fellowship, and they're one of the most powerful things that we got. But our predecessors fellowship did fold because they were trying to be everything to everybody. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things I've learned from doing service work and different things, or like I had a H&I commitment. I've always had. I was gonna say one time. I've always had H&I commitments. But I had this director wanted me to do X, Y, Z, and and I remember it was either Claude or my sponsor, like, yeah, read your fourth and your ninth tradition. And I read my fourth and my ninth tradition. I went back and shared with him. We can't be this X, Y, Z to you guys. This is what we are. We're here to bring a message. And a lot of times early on when I was in little jams, I got a chance to learn about traditions, and it say through doing service we learn about them, and I was able to. Because somebody told me something, I questioned them. It was just like that, what I mean? Go straight to what was written, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, return on the truth. So, I'm reading this right here. And one of the things I want to do is just read a little bit out of some of the traditions. And one of the things, I put some little footnotes on here. I put one of the things to whom much is given, much is expected. And another thing I put up, that we keep what we have, not with political correctness. One of the things I want to just share about, a couple of things I want to share about. Sometimes people come in and they want to read stuff or do stuff that's not Narcotics Anonymous lit. And, and for me, honestly, I probably was way worse than Tate. I would say I was way worse than Tate at certain times. I got clean in the mid 80s, and we was establishing our own identity. So, and I came from a place that I wasn't welcomed, to their, it read the same, traditions read the same, and all. Well, not all the stuff read the same. Some of it read different, but regardless, we were kind of rebels, and we were called even worse words than that, and we wore it with a badge. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't, but we progressed some. As a matter of fact, now I think we're kind of attacked when we stand up even, you know what I'm saying? So, I guess happy medium stuff, but I still stand for the traditions, and I still believe in them wholeheartedly. But one of the things a sponsee said to me one time, because I have a tendency to speak up when somebody step on the traditions or just do stuff or don't do it out of knowledge. I try to do it out of love, but one of the things he said was, somebody get ready to do something, just, say, hey, I want to read this right here. All you got to do is say, hey, is that Narcotics Anonymous approved literature? You know what I mean? That right there, you know what I'm saying? It's like, either it is or it isn't, you know what I mean? So we're going to ask for some respect for this meeting in some shape, form, or fashion. But I also grew up in an area where it's just, silence equals death. So I don't really mind standing up for the knowledge that I've gotten with these traditions, you know what I'm saying? I really don't. And I try not to bang people over the head with bats with it, though, you know what I'm saying? Because one of the things I was joking with a friend of mine last night was, I was a complete rebel when I got here, and it's kind of a funny word for me to be using, but not really. But I was a complete rebel, and if I said something and somebody kind of barked at me in the meeting, I'd say 10 more things, you know what I mean, that was out of line. And I remember Claude would always just put his arm around my shoulder and walk me around after the meeting, explain, you know, what this calls for in this tradition and the unity that's just called. And I heard that, you know what I mean. I was able to get next to that. I'm like, you know what, it's a pretty loving little guy right here. You know, I can get next to what he's talking about. And I just listened to what he shared, man. And he was never wrong, you know what I mean? When it came to certain stuff, he had done his homework with this stuff. And so for me, one of the things I try to do is just do that instead of, you know, pounding them too hard. It's like, you know, is that, you know, and I don't know. But, you know, something you was talking about with the traditions, they are a lot, you know, they're a lot deeper than we realize. And I wish we had a lot more meetings about traditions because there's so much stuff there, you know. And I was thinking, when Tate was sharing, I was thinking I've seen a lot of people come here and not delve into the traditions as deep, and I've watched us get, like, you know, a lot of relationships and the marriages and that type stuff. And you're pretty knowledgeable on the tradition, but so I ain't really talking about you, but I've seen a lot of people get a little of this and take off, and then you see them break up. And I was eating dinner, and I was talking to somebody the other day that wasn't eating dinner with, and it's some 20-something year relationships, and I was just thinking about their knowledge and their working knowledge of the traditions and how, you know, that helps us, you know, appreciate and respect whoever else there is in our lives, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's one of the things I just kind of thought about when you said that. I thought about, you know, 20, 30-year relationships that I've seen, and that's one of the things that they have in common is, like, you know, just some strong ties for, you know, what the traditions do. It protect us from us, you know what I'm saying? I remember my son one time was listening to this little song. He says, this is, "Don't Let Me Get Me," and a line in the song, you know, what does that mean, Dad? And I was, and I gave him a couple of examples about me, and then I was like, I'll tell you what, I can give you an example about this person, like, you know, that sometimes we get in our way with stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, and I was able to give him an example, and he was like, and that's what the traditions remind me of, you know, don't let me get me. You know what I'm saying? It's because I always got me. You know what I mean? I was thinking about when I was walking down here when they asked me to do this, and I've done a lot of different stuff at a lot of different conventions, and I was thinking when I got here, one of the things I was sure of, if we hung out, you wasn't going to invite me back anywhere. Like my relatives, my associates, nobody invited me back anywhere a second time. You know what I'm saying? It was like, get out, don't ever come back here. And I've been invited back here over and over and over again. Here's different conventions and stuff. And it feels nice to be able to be invited back more than once. You know, my dad I wouldn't even be that welcome in my own house. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things the tradition does is make me, you know, one of the things I was told early on too was if I'm not the problem, there's no solution. So, you know what I mean? If I want to look at what's going on, I got to look at my role in it. And that's, sometimes I got people that won't even come to me and talk to me about stuff because they know that's that first question, like, what's your part in it? What's your part, you know? Because that's the truth. If I don't have a part in it, you know, I'm probably not going to get any better at it. You know what I mean? If I can blame you guys for my situation, I never have to look at it. I'm only going to get worse. So, you know, I just want to read a little bit about, you know, our Commonwealth, our First Person Recovery depends on NA unity. And one of the most important things, the new way of life, is being a part of a group seeking recovery. The group remains stable or the entire fellowship perishes and the individual dies. And, you know, I've seen meetings die. And I've seen meetings die because of, you know, too strong of personalities or way too weak of personalities. Nobody willing to step up, nobody willing to do anything, you know, or people trying to dominate or own it or just, you know what I'm saying, the way, you know, one of the things I always think about when we talk about, you know, because I'm in the area and stuff like that sometimes, and I think about trusted servants, you know, and I was chatting with my sponsor the other week. I'm like, you know, there's a reason they don't call us, like, you know, because somebody was like barking and like ordering. It's like, I think about a servant, you know what I mean? If I'm waiting on you guys, if I'm serving you guys, you know, I'm going to try to get the best tip I can get and all. I'm not going to walk around like I'm your trusted master. You know what I'm saying? We call them trusted servants and not trusted masters for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be mindful not to get too twisted about that type stuff too. You know what I'm saying? And entitlement and that, you know, the whatever. So, but you guys have seen it before. So, So that's one of the things that, I just thought about, and I was, just wanted to point out a few little different things. But our knowledge, if we do understand and we do have application of this stuff, you see stuff flow a lot smoother. You know what I mean? It's matter of fact, on tape. Well, if I say it, I'll say it anyway. Matter of fact, I'm trying to figure a nice, loving way. And thinking about the traditions, you get your own answer, I guess, with stuff. I'm trying to figure out a nice, loving way to share something with somebody that's that pertains back to that statement. You know what I mean? We're not trusted masters. We don't run. You know what I mean? We're here, and we should be here out of humility and being more a part of. So I just kind of got an answer with that, and I don't really need to get into it anyway. 'Cause sometimes, yeah, I am one of them, but sometimes we got super sensitive and da-da-da, you know what I mean? We'll bark like a Great Dane, man, but but it's easy to get our feelings hurt sometimes, don't say. So for me, even with the traditions with that, it's important on how I approach each personality. You know what I'm saying? It means a lot. I don't try to run people away today or I'm this and this and this and that, but I do try to share, experience, strength, and hope. You know what I mean? And the way it was shared with me was thrown. The way I received it best was when arms were thrown around my shoulder, and it was like, you don't say all this stuff at the end of the prayer because we're talking about unity here. We, all those stuff that don't exist, that ain't born. We do all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it's just important for me to learn from what I've gained and be able to share experience, strength, and hope in a loving, caring way. You know what I'm saying? Because if I truly believe in a higher power, I believe in God, and if God's like in charge of it, you know what I'm saying? If I got a trusting, loving, caring higher power, then that's what I'm gonna come to everybody with. You know what I'm saying? But I guess if I figured I was my own God, I come with a battering ram probably. You know what I mean? So it's just important to me. Tell me when I got like 5 minutes left or something. But shut up. You already read your reading, Ronnie B. It wasn't until we came to Narcotics Anonymous that the program can do for us what we could do for ourselves. We learned that those who did not continue to be active part of fellowship faced a rough road. And that's one of the things I've seen. I've seen a lot of people that, I skipped a little part of reading, but I've watched a lot of people, and I always say it's like the gift that Narcotics Anonymous gave us takes us away from Narcotics Anonymous. You know what I'm saying? I've watched that a lot. And I buried no less than 166 people since I've been here that decided they want to try it their way again and do their own thing. And if I fought this disease 1,000,000 times, I'd never win. You know what I mean? So surrendering to the program has always been the answer for me. People just ran through my head. But, for me, it's... for me, it's important. I've had a love affair with this fellowship ever since I got here. Well, not ever since I got here. At a certain point, I end up getting a love affair. I end up with like 5 white key tags because I didn't want any of this knowledge y'all had. Don't come to me with that unsolicited stuff, and I don't want to hear it. And And I did it my way for a long time, and I ended up with 12 white key tags. But I remember that very last time coming in. One of the reasons I got into the traditions pretty early was because I got into everything. Once I came in that last time, it was just like, you know what, man, truly everything I know about life is burying me. So whatever you guys are doing is what I'm going to do. And if y'all ain't doing it, I don't want anything to do with it. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things they did was had me to follow them to this area meeting thing. And I ended up with going to be an activities chair, and then they changed it, so let's make them H&I chair. And I've done H&I ever since. I've been doing it since '86 and all. And for me, it's been the best thing that I could possibly do was just listen to somebody else, anybody else. You know what I'm saying? I follow them. And I've pretty much been home free. Like I said, I've had a love affair, and I hadn't fallen into those. I've been blessed not to fall into those laws of like, you know what I mean? Well, this or the gift that recovery has given me. And one of the things that, I hear a lot around here is they used to talk a lot about people struggling with having a problem with failure, and one of the things that we have a bigger problem with around here is success. You know what I mean? A lot of us struggle. We get this back, or we get that back, or get family acceptance back, or we get different things back, you know what I'm saying? And that's when we're like, because this thing never lets up, man. And I don't care 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you know what I'm saying? It's waiting on us. So for me, it's like I'm grateful. I've always had that love affair for it, you know what I'm saying? I'm grateful I've been willing to learn about the traditions and everything else. And I was a lot like, I was so glad to see Tate show up in here, man, because I asked Tony if, I thought I had to do this by myself for like an hour. I was like, man, I got to do this for an hour and something? And I'm like, man, I'm going to get somebody else and pull them up there. And then when I walked in this morning, he was like, yeah, you and Tate going to do it. I'm like, I love you to death, man, but I've never been so happy to see you because I'm like, an hour and something, traditions workshop, so, and I appreciate, you and I both got a lot of what we got from Casey, you know what I'm saying? I'd be remiss not to mention Casey. She's a person that went all over the place and helped this fellowship a whole lot. And the thing about predecessors, the beauty in it, and the beauty in this fellowship in general is, I never, ever had to really figure out anything once I got here. I thought I had to figure out a lot, but I didn't have to figure out anything. The only thing I had to do was lean over or make a phone call and say, hey, share this with me. You know what I mean? What's your experience with this? What's your knowledge on that? And be a active participant listener. And for me, that was priceless, you know what I mean? Because after that, I lost like 61 pounds in 60 days after my last weight keto. I came in 128. I was kind of teachable after that, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't too teachable before that, but after that, I'm like, man, whatever y'all got to share with me is like, I'm eating it up, you know what I'm saying? So, a lot of it had to do with traditions, and we were convention junkies and stuff back then, so we would we'd be sitting at Waffle House, man, be 5 or 6, we'd get in the car and go to a convention, stop by Kmart and buy clothes and toothpaste and stuff, And it was a ball, man, it was a blast. And we're all better off for it. Matter of fact, one of the first conventions I went to was Frickton of '87, and there was only about 12 of us down there in the whole down in Albany. And one of the things, the guy that's my current sponsor, he spoke, and one of the things he said, he says, and one of the things that our predecessor fellowship folded one time because they was trying to be everything to everybody. But one of the things my sponsor said was like, look, if we're not as strong as our predecessor fellowship, it's because we are not willing to make a commitment to the Narcotics Anonymous Fellowship. And I got a chance to sit with a lot of people, Dutch, a lot of them, and just talk about their commitment to Narcotics Anonymous. And one of the things we did in Albany at the time, we ended up having about 12 to 15 people normally. We ended up, everybody went over and gave away all their other lit. Everybody got NA sponsors and stuff, and we made a commitment to Narcotics Anonymous back then, and we were able to live within the traditions. And we went from like 12, 15 people. We ended up having 88 people one night, and we had like 100. Shannon and Paul, we had 100 people one night. We were like, wow, man, a little bit of willingness. And one of the things they did was, I told you I wouldn't really welcome other places somewhere else, but one of the things they did was they said, man, instead of you having to go here, what we'd do, we had 2 meetings a week. So what we did was they was like, we're going to start 13 meetings a week, 6 during the day and 7 at night. So we'd have a place to call our home. And all it takes for me from that statement is just willingness, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people, well, I had to do this, I had to do that. And they was like, no, we ain't got to do this. We just got to have some willingness and start some more meetings up. And we did. And we grew tremendously from it, you know what I'm saying? And we were able to respect their traditions by, letting them have their spot, and respect ours by staying here and learning more about ours, you know what I mean? And I got a chance to talk to a lot of people about Rockefeller laws and all that, and how a lot of this stuff came about, and how much blood, sweat, and tears was put into making sure Narcotics Anonymous had its own home and stuff, and us being proud, not our doorstep or anything else, us being proud of us for who we are and what we were and what we could accomplish, you know what I'm saying? So, and the program is 100% effective, you know what I mean? Regardless, it's like, some of us are flawed, all of us are flawed. I might speak for y'all. Not you. So, but the program's 100% effective, you know what I mean? And for me, I never did even get off step one, man. It's got to talk about everything. And but I don't know, there's a lot. What did I say?
Step.
Of course I did. But what time is it?
Yeah, about 6-7 minutes.
Yeah, I'm finna wrap. But anyway, well, what I'm gonna do is just take a second to wrap up and say I appreciate you guys coming up and coming out and showing up. You know, if I wasn't sitting right here, I'd be asleep probably right now. I truly was. I was still awake at 6:30 or 7. You know, so I wouldn't be here. So I joked when I walked in. I was like, oh, it was like 5 people. I'm like, oh my God, it must be a relationship workshop. It's like everybody in here, but. You know, and this is kind of, I guess the time is 9 o'clock too, but it's a little bit reflective on how the importance of our traditions, or lack thereof for a lot of people, you know what I mean? Not a lot show up here, but you talk about relationships and different stuff like that, and you know, the doors are bursting out, but it's, yeah, so you guys are the McGillicuddies, and I love you guys, and thanks again for asking me to share this, Narcotics Anonymous. Thank you guys.
At this time, we're going to open up the floor. Go ahead.
What you talking about, old? I'm ready to be on that.
Rodney.
You know, my personal recovery depends on NA unity. And that unity depends on how well we follow our traditions. And like what you're saying, Cecil, sometimes we can beat each other up over the tradition. And one thing, it used to be, I know I used to like to prove that I'm smarter than you. You know, I know more than you. Then when somebody come up and would say, okay, like you said, tradition can't be broken. Okay, but one thing I do know, they can be violated. And whenever I feel somebody violate a tradition, it's on. It's an argument. Now, by me getting a better perspective on myself, when I feel somebody broken or violated tradition, and they say something, because I hear some people say some of them outrageous type of nonsense, they come and say, that's a violation of tradition. And I said, okay, all right, now, I need to know that. Show me where it's that at. Mm-hmm. Because I need to know that when once upon a time, I'll try to just prove you wrong. You know, the 6th tradition tells me that I can't endorse anything else. 6th tradition tells me that's a strictly violation of it. And I know, see, sometimes I will be like a villain, somebody in my home group. See, there's certain things people will say I'll just ignore, or I'll get with them at a meeting. But there's some things I cannot tolerate for me in my recovery. When somebody come in my home group and just pull out some of the literature and gonna start reading it, you cannot do that here. And sometimes when people don't know, they thinking I'm being an asshole. You know? And I wound up looking like a villain. Because the guy wanted to celebrate, and he had his sponsor to sell it, and his sponsor gonna bust out an AA piece of literature and say, you know, like he gonna drop some knowledge on me. I said, well, we got to get together after the meeting, but you ain't reading that shit here. And then somebody in my home group coming to me talking, it ain't no violation. So they brought me. I said, well, have you ever read the 6th tradition? They give us this little thing. So it says right here. I said, no, have you ever read the 6th tradition? You know. And then we do step a tradition in our home group, and then when it was time to do the 6th tradition, just so happened I was discussion leader. I said, now here's the part where y'all think I'm so stupid. You know, when I read that part, then they said, oh, okay. You know, I was talking to Cecil the other day. I said, that's the reason I quit going to area. Oh, that's the reason I quit. That's the reason I quit going to area, because, see, I'm stupid. And if I see somebody blatantly violating the tradition, I'm going to speak on it. I'm stupid that way. And see, and some of the people are are more, how should I say it, more popular than I am. And the people who don't know gonna more like be on their side regardless of what I'm talking about, although I'm right. But then it also says in the basic text in our literature, although I was right, was I supposed to be? Okay, but now I be right, and then I know, like, then again, I'm gonna be looking like a villain again, you know. And then talking about the second tradition, talking about that group conscious, you know, we got a set of principles written so simply that we can apply them in our daily affairs. So how, if we're going to apply those spiritual principles in our daily affairs, how come we can't apply those spiritual principles in our group conscious? Because one thing I know about spiritual principles, they are never in conflict. So if I'm applying these spiritual principles and I'm inviting a loving God into my group conscious, where's the problem? Okay, now the fifth tradition says, you know, it's a line in the fifth tradition that says the problem with literature is language. Because we are subject to our own interpretation. But you know, like they said, a 12th tradition, you know, after having a spiritual awakening, the results of these steps, I got my spiritual awakening when I did the third tradition. Applying the spiritual principle of the third tradition, tolerance, compassion, humility. There's one more I can't think of right now. But when I applied those, that changed my whole shit around. You know? Because the third tradition tells me I don't have the right to judge. Do I judge? Yeah. You know, I'll be up in the meetings. Oh, won't that motherfucker just shut the fuck up? You know. you know, I still be judging everything, but the thing about it, I don't act out on it like I want to, you know, because at once upon a time, I thought I was your higher power. You're supposed to act like this in the meeting, you're supposed to share like this in the meeting, you're supposed to do this in the meeting, and I got 90 days clean. But I'm still gonna try to be your higher power. But that's one thing I can never forget. It's that unity. See, these 12 traditions is the guidelines that keep our fellowship alive and free. You know, and like I don't know. I just love the tradition. Because that's always had been my problem. I didn't know how to interact with people. And the 12 traditions give me that way of how to interact. Still, do I do it in a loving, caring way? No. You know, there's some things I still got to work on. So anyway, I'm glad this workshop was on the tradition. I think both of y'all did an excellent, excellent job. And I'm glad I got up to hear both of y'all speak this morning. And to both of y'all, thank you for being here for my recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
My name's Charles. I'm from Recovering
Can
Addicts.
y'all come up so you can get on the tape?
Oh, I gotta.
Oh no.
Come on up.
I'm under license, so my voice can't be recorded.
My name's Charles. I'm a grateful Recovering Addict.
Charles?
First of all, I want to thank God for His grace and His mercy for waking me up this morning. I got clean in '89, and when I went to my first couple of meetings in Narcotics Anonymous, you know, I was hearing all the reads and I was reading all these different meditation books and stuff. And I read a meditation one morning. I said, man, they need to get this. So I went to the meeting, and I wanted to read from that meditation book that was not Narcotics Anonymous literature. And this guy, about 6', got up. I'm real short. And he got up and he stood right in my face. I mean, you can't do this. Yes, here, I'm gonna try not to use profanity here. You can't do that here. But what it did, you know, I want to prove him wrong. I want to find how can I find out how he made me felt was wrong. So I started going to tradition meetings. I started going to workshops on traditions, you know, and then I found out that I was wrong. So when I seen the gentleman again, I apologize for him because I had a lack of knowledge based on what he was trying to tell me. And a couple of the events took place for the primary purpose. We like in one of the areas that I'm in now, they were scheduling some events, and in these events, like they just want to just party. I said, well, how you gonna have an event, without our primary purpose is to carry the message to the addicts still suffer? Well, they said, we are carrying the message. We showing people that they can have fun in recovery. I said, well, why can't we give people an option, the ones that do want to know about our primary purpose, our traditions and our concepts, and our steps, then let them have a choice for the meeting. If they want to go to that type of meeting, if they want to stay out there, play cards and do the domino thing. They said, Charles, my name is Charles. They said, Charles, people just get tired of that. The only thing you think about is traditions and steps. That's all you think about, workshops on that. We just want to party and just have a good time. And so I was like, I had to give up their wrong, for my right, just got back off for it, and maybe eventually that they would pretty much find the reason, because I was up in Atlanta, and I know about Highland Club and all these other Main Street, and one of the gentlemen was telling me, he said, Charles, the Highland Club was not founded on just partying and having fun. People know that when they come there, that they're gonna be able to get a meeting at some point. And so I'm beginning now. When I got up this morning, I was up late all last night. And so when I got up, I wanted to get to this workshop, man. I said, man, because I want to expand my knowledge on the tradition, because I know I don't know everything. The longer I stay here, the more I find out what I don't know. So I'm willing, So I got up, I come to the workshop. I was sitting here, I was sitting over there in my chair then, man. Lord, I got up this morning. I said, he's bouncing all around. I want to know, a lot of time I ask people, they'll tell me something, but then they won't give me no example of it, So I be looking for example. You telling me, work the step. It seems like some people put more emphasis on the steps, but then the traditions, we read them at all our meetings, and there's no emphasis. It's like the steps are more important than tradition, but to me, they're both equally important, because I learned how to interact with people on my job. The traditions really helped me with that. Like, I want to do things my way on the job. I said, why they got to do it this way? There's an easier way to do this. But then it was pointed out to me, well, Charles, there's other people that's going to be affected, so you don't know what went down the line, why we got it this way. There's a reason for this. Anyway, thanks for letting me share, and I hope everybody have a blessed day.
Thank you. Sure. Come on up, but I want to say something real quick before you come and have a seat. I just want to say something. We talk about unity, and we talk about how the application in our lives, and something hit me a while ago when I was thinking about a bunch of the calls I've gotten from people and stuff, and when we talk about unity and we talk about how we apply this stuff in our lives. And I just kind of wanted to take a second out to invite everybody to think about what they put on and how it's unifying or disunifying, and when they press send. Because we see a lot of stuff, and I get a lot of calls, and I need to share it. I just want to share it on tape, man, because, I've had a lot of people call me, I'm blocking this, I'm doing that. So, before we press in, what am I doing what served me, or am I doing what's best for all involved? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to put that out there, because that's becoming an issue, and it's growing like crazy, and it's kind of putting a wedge, you know what I mean? And the traditions will help a lot with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm an addict. My name's Al.
Hey, Al.
That's kind of with the advent of social media. It's kind of changed the landscape, changed the picture. I got clean in Bucks County. I'm from Bucks County, PA, just outside of Philadelphia. I always say that Philadelphia is a suburb of Bucks County, because Bucks County is where it all happened. But anyway, I got clean September 25th, 1979. And what happened at that time is that basically, if you wanted to make 7 NA meetings in a week, you had to put about 300 miles on your car if you had one. I didn't have one, and because there just wasn't, I say when I got to NA, there wasn't much NA to get to, So by default, we made a lot of meetings of the other fellowship. And so one of my first experiences with traditions, and although I wasn't able to see it in that context at that time, was that the way we were treated as addicts being in their meetings, And basically there was two different ways that people interacted with us. What I wasn't able to see at that time is that really, some of the people were saying, like, you don't really belong here, which in effect they were probably correct because we were in their cloud and their message, essentially, is what we were doing. Although some people treated us very tactfully in that and even helped us, push us in the direction of, like, creating more NA meetings and stuff like that. And, of course, other people, you get the comments like, I spilled more on my tie than you drank, Sonny, and all that stuff. And I remember comments. I remember people saying stuff like, "Well, you can't stay." Well, and you'll never hear me use this word much, but you can't stay sober by just going to NA meetings. And I'm using that in a historical context. Don't throw me out of the meeting. You can't, or I go there to get it and I come here to give it away. Or I go there to get it and I come here because this is where the pretty young girls are. And eventually I would start saying things to them, well, why don't you just keep your over there, So essentially we didn't even know anything about the steps, let alone the traditions, we knew we read them before the meeting if we even had literature, because we call out to California, take 4 months to get literature if we got it at all, half the time. So we didn't even know anything about the steps, let alone the traditions. But then what happened is that we started to get involved with literature, the development of the basic text, and it's funny because I was talking to Charles last night, and I hadn't seen Charles in 30 years. It's kind of funny. It's the way it works in NA. It's like we hadn't talked in years and years, but it's almost like we had lunch together last week, like that, that kind of thing. It's like, and we were talking about that period of time, and we were talking, basically we said that, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had absolutely no clue what we were doing. We pretty much, the basic text was written in a way we just kind of like winged it. It was clear, and even at the time, and it's definitely clear now, that there was a loving and caring God that was guiding that process the whole entire time.
Right.
And so the tradition section was written kind of like in a way, we were charged with the development of the tradition section, and the tradition section was developed in a way in which, basically we winged it. We didn't really know what the hell, what should be, shouldn't be, whatever the case may be. But what happened after time is that in that time period, the traditions were basically, you Cecil, you used the term trusted master, So the traditions were a vehicle for me to beat you over the head to get you to see things my way, right?
Yeah.
And what happened is that over time, that the concept of the traditions, developed, like developed into, instead of principles for me to beat you over the head to get you to see things my way, they became, spiritual principles for us to practice to maintain our unity, to maintain our common purpose, to maintain, keep us on track, because we're people that, we get off track in a hurry. Like I said, thank God that it became that, spiritual principles for us to practice in all of our affairs. And we may not have ever gotten the opportunity to know Narcotics Anonymous as we know it today. It may very well have perished, and it's really only because of the traditions that we're able to do what we do here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tools, not weapons, right?
I'll talk some more.
I'm open.
Will you take a question
Yes.
from experience?
I'm sorry.
So-
Anybody else got questions?
Yeah. So one of the things that I struggle with is practicing the traditions when the people around me are not, either because they are not in the program or they're not aware of them. especially like at work. You know, I focus on our common welfare a lot at work and unity, but I struggle because not everybody is there for the same, is doing the same thing. So if you've got experience on that, how does that work for you?
I'm not even Tate.
Hey,
Hey, Tate.
I work in I don't know if you want to talk about work, but I work in one of the largest HVAC companies in Georgia, and they definitely don't apply traditions. I think what I've seen though, in looking at the traditions, I see that it's not capitalism. Tradition isn't capitalism, and traditions isn't. It's not really set up to run a business as much as it is. It really is set up to allow something to live and thrive and have a life. So in a lot of ways, I can't really. It's not really a good template always to lay over a capitalist business. And like for example, my boss is a really conservative, really old school religious type of person, and I can see how by him not applying the traditions, how much power he can yield over a group of people just by imposing his specific beliefs on them, on his Judeo-Christian belief system, his conservative point of view. That's basically about, it's all about the bottom line. It's all about money, and I think about this program would disintegrate if it had anything like that. If it had, older white gentlemen that were trying to impose Christian values on us in here, and watch every penny we spent. This fellowship wouldn't last. It would dissolve immediately. So, applying that at work, I kind of see it as a good object lesson at work. More than something that I'm like learning from, or maybe I'm learning from it as what not to do. Go ahead. You got something, Cecil?
Yeah, I'm Cecil Manatic. I was gonna read a lot out of this stuff, but I didn't. A lot of the traditions, but I didn't. But one of the things I don't read right quick is in Narcotics Anonymous, we're concerned with protection from ourselves. Our second tradition is an example of this. By nature, we're strong-willed, self-centered people who are thrust together in A, and we're mismanagers, and not one of us is completely are capable of consistently making good decisions. But it goes on to say, Narcotics Anonymous, we rely on a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. I've managed people. I've done a different type of work. I still work door to door. I've had people come to the doors with guns. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing here, kind of stuff. And for me, all this stuff is for me. You know what I'm saying? It's back to protecting me from me, and it's back to teaching me how to deal with anybody, anywhere, at any given time, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? I love guns, you know what I mean? I have some, and I don't bring them to the door and meet them with them, you know what I'm saying? I leave a car, and I normally talk to people, and by the end of the evening, they're buying stuff. A year later, we're laughing and talking about, 5 years later, we're laughing and talking about how they first met me with a gun. And for me, it's just me to apply this. Even, you talk about work, but one of the things, too, is like, I talk to people about family members, whoever, like, I'm the one with the program. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm going to affect positive change, you know what I mean? Most times got to come from me. And I've watched that happen a lot of times. You get some people that just want to straight up rebel regardless. But, and if I'm not the problem, there's no solution. So I have to ease away from those. No matter if I work with them or blood or whatever, I got to take myself back out of the picture. But for me, it's normally worked if the application of a loving, caring God come into play, and these, what the principles that I've learned here, it tends to do a lot better. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like doing a 9th step for me. It's like, I was able to make amends to certain people. I had one guy where I was trying to make amends to him, and I went across the road, right? And he went to the other side, right? I went back across. He went to the other side, and I was, look, man, I'm doing it. He's like, man, whatever you doing, Red. He called me Red back then. You can do it, but just stay away from me with it. And I went to my sponsor, and he said, what did the guy ask you? I said, well, he didn't ask me anything. He told me to stay away from him. He was like, that's your 9th step amends to him, Cecil. You know what I mean? You give him as much space as he asked for. And for me, I felt okay with it after that. You know what I'm saying? If I bring the most loving, positive message I can to whoever I am, and I've done my best with that, that's all I can do. You know what I'm saying? So does that make sense to you? So be the best little person you can. Leave it at that. Love you guys. Thank you. Don't leave, Al. Any more questions?
Well, my name's Charles. I'm an addict. I was glad she asked that particular question because I was on my job and manager said something to me I just didn't like. I just didn't like the way he said it. So with me supposed to be having a program, I acted just like I did in the street, and I responded back to him in a manner in which he had responded to me. I ended up in the office with the superintendent. And the superintendent said, well, Charles, we know you've been going to the program for a long time, but you still act just like what you did when you were using drugs. So he said, well, did you think about what your manager said? Regardless of the way he looked, his expression, was he right or was he wrong? Now, the man was right in what he told me. I just didn't like the way he said it. He said, well, you the one that got the program. And the region came down our alley one day. These were one of the questions that was asked. Well, how do we correct people without doing it in a real, bad way or something? And they said the best thing to do when you're trying to correct people, when you care and share, you do it the NA way. Because you the one that got the program and the principles and they don't. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Got
Right.
like 10 more minutes. No?
Yeah, boo.
I'm high while I'm at it.
Come on up. Come on up. Speaker tape. Somebody gonna be listening to it riding down the road.
In Narcotics Anonymous and in this group, we have a key tag system all around the world. Measures the quantity of your time, not the quality. We start by offering the white key tag. Why? Because that's surrender. We offer it twice. Why? Because God gave us a second chance, so we offer you a second chance. We also offer that white key tag because before you get that, before you get the others, you have to get that one. Before you get the traditions, you have to get the steps. Because the literature clearly says, if you want what we have and are willing to take certain steps, these are some suggestions that we make. Now I work all around the world. And I can't go to my boss and say, I'm in the NA program. I won't even make it back to the room. I'll be on a jet so fast. And a lot of times I experience all kinds of isms. And like everybody before me has said, I have to remember that I am in the program. That I am working steps. That I have spiritual principles. And allow other people to fly the airplane and allow myself to ride my bike.
all of the steps and traditions and concepts. There's spiritual principles behind it. And we have to know that, and I have to know that in order to recover, I have to know that drugs is my problem, but it's not my problem. After a certain point, after so many days clinically, the habit of using drugs is gone. But if the drugs don't kill me, the lifestyle will. So therefore, I must change my behavior. I must think different. I must act different. I must respond different. And I have to live differently. So that is how I deal with bosses, people, family, just driving down the street. Sometimes I'll get in a little bit of rage, and I've become so aware of what's norm that I will identify that emotion and I will talk to that emotion. I ain't crazy. Well, yeah, I'm crazy. You know, literature says, just for today, tell yourself. So I talk to self. I tell that emotion. Why do you feel that way? Well, what can you do to calm down? Because you know, because I know, when I act on emotion, I have an alert allergy to obsessive compulsive behavior. I break out of handcuffs. You know, I go into institutions. And even died one time. My heart stopped because I was chasing money. And I had a medical procedure. And my heart stopped.